Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new college football-based show. I'm going to do this every single week. I want to talk about the games that just happened. I want to talk about the games that are going to happen on Saturday. This is week 1. I didn't do one for week 0 because I really didn't see the point of talking about 4 games that I didn't think anything big time would happen. Well, I was wrong. Georgia Tech upset Florida State in Ireland. As a Gator fan, I appreciate that, but I kind of want to talk about why I think that happened, and also I want to give you some bets for later on. I have 8 bets for this week. I have a lock of the week, and I have an underdog of the week, so stay tuned for that. But to start off, we have to recap the week 0 game that everyone seems to be talking about, and that's Florida State, Georgia Tech. And the reason why I think this game surprised so many people is Florida State was heavily favored. They were, I believe, at one point a 2-touchdown point favorite. I think the line closed at 13.5. They were expected to mollywop Georgia Tech, a Georgia Tech team that didn't have a really good defense last year, that could not stop a run to save their life last year, and a team that had major turnover issues. Well, they didn't get that. Among the many positives I can say about Georgia Tech, I'm going to throw out a major one right away, and that's Haynes King. Haynes King led the ACC in turnovers last year, but he didn't have a single turnover in this game against Florida State, a very opportunistic defense the year prior. Now, there was a botched snap fumble that nearly took Georgia Tech out of field goal range, but it didn't, and they were able to have a good screenplay, got them in there, were able to kick the game-winning field goal. So, now that I've talked about some positives from Georgia Tech, let's go to the major negatives about Florida State. And there was a theme that Florida State got beat up in the trenches. Both offensively and defensively, their lines got pushed around. Now, Florida State's offensive line worries me a bunch more than their D-line because this is a very experienced offense line. I believe 7 of their top guys are 23 years or older, somewhere around that mark. That's not what you want. Richie Leonard, as a Gator fan, I watched a bunch of him. That might be the worst game that I've ever seen him play, and he has had some stinkers, but he was overall solid last year. I truly felt like he took a step back. Maybe that had to do with travel. Maybe it was because Florida State thought, hey, we're so much better than Georgia Tech. We don't even have to really put in the A effort, and Georgia Tech came out and punched them, and they could never get back settled in. But I think the biggest issue with Florida State would just be how the defense front 7 played. And I'm not even going to blame the D-line because I thought on interior runs, they weren't bad. They were fine. But those linebackers, when they had to set an edge, when they had to crash down, I never felt like FSU's linebackers were in the right spot. Randy Shannon, a coach I'm familiar with as he was the linebacker coach at the University of Florida, I didn't like the hire when he was made. Not saying he can't turn around, but at this point, I don't think it's going to look good. They have not recruited that position well at all. And you look at Florida State, who's going to be going up against Boston College. They're going to be able to do a lot of similar things that Georgia Tech did do. But instead of Haynes King, they have a very dynamic runner at quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. So that gives me some cause for concern there. And probably the last thing I want to touch on this game, DJU was DJU. I saw a lot of people were bad-mouthing him, kind of saying, like, this guy isn't good. He was supposed to be better. No, he was not. This was DJU. To put higher expectations on DJU is unfair to the player and unfair just to this team overall. This team has to carry him to win. I don't think that's a question. DJU can be serviceable. He didn't have a turnover-worthy play, which was majorly huge considering he had a bunch at Oregon State and at Clemson. But he's not going to be the guy to take you over the hump. He's not going to be the one when you have to make a last-second drive to win the game that he's going to hit it 100%. He had a very good drive to tie the game up, 21-21. But even then, it was 4th downs. They had big-time completions on some just bad coverage by Georgia Tech. Do I think he is going to be the guy for the entire season? No. I think at some point, if they are out, especially if they are out of the ACC conference title picture, they will be playing their true freshman quarterback, Luke, and I'm blanking on his last name. But you need to see what he has, and if you need to go to the transfer portal again, get a different guy. And this maybe comes down to a big issue with how Florida State is built. They haven't been built necessarily in the recruiting rankings how a lot of people have been. They're starting to get there now, but previously it's been a lot of, hey, get the transfers, get the transfers, get the transfers. The problem with transfers, a lot of them are just one-year mercenaries hired to get the job done. We saw last year, they got the job done. This year, it's off to a rough start. And I'm not saying their season is done or over with. No. It's week 0. It's one game. You cannot make these drastic overreactions from one game. Now, if they come out against Boston College and they have the same exact issues, and Boston College runs all around them, and Boston College wins that game, then there's time for major concern. Or I would even say if it's a one-score game, I'd have major concern. Because Florida State is playing in Doak this week. There is no excuse to lose this game. You can maybe say, hey, we traveled overseas, jet lag, whatever, unfamiliar ground. You're at home. If you don't win this game, questions have to be asked. Now to move on, let's go to the other two major Florida teams in Miami versus Florida. And the reason why I want to recap this game, preview this game first, is because I am a Gator fan. I have more knowledge about the Gators than probably any other college football team. So when I talk about this, and I'm not going to ramble on, this is the toughest schedule, all that. We've all heard it. It's true. The back half of the schedule is terrifying. This front half, though, is where they have to win football games. And I think they're coming to this game desperate. Very desperate. Very needing a win. Miami. Mario, I see a lot of people saying Mario's in the hot seat. I don't think that at all. And neither do I think Billy's in the hot seat either. A lot of people expect the loser of this game will be fired at the end of the season. I don't think either coach is fired, to be completely honest. But we look at how Mario has built the team at Oregon that's done so well since he's left, and how he kind of recruited Alabama offensive line. Mario builds up these trenches. I really like the defensive line. I really like their edges. Miami has a great edge unit. But I feel like their offense line is very work in progress still. And he's got some good recruits coming in. They're going to be playing. But I don't know if they're ready yet. And my concern is you have a brand new quarterback in Cam Ward, who I like a bunch. This is not a Gator fan who's coming on here to complain that, oh, Cam Ward is this, that. No, I think he's a very good quarterback. I probably would have had him as a top 5 quarterback in this past draft cycle. I really liked him a bunch. So what do I expect from Cam Ward? I expect the same thing we're going to see. He has a gunslinger mentality, and that's not a bad thing. He will throw the ball into tight coverages, and sometimes they're going to get completed, sometimes they're going to fall to the ground, sometimes they're going to get intercepted. That's how he plays football. It's fun to watch. A good comp for him is similar to Gardner Minshew. Ironically, both from Washington State. But they have that mentality of, my arm is that effing good. I'm going to get it in that spot, and it's going to be completed. Now let's go to the Florida quarterback, Graham Mertz. I was not excited when Florida landed transfer Graham Mertz last year, but I thought he overall had a good season. Didn't push the ball downfield as much as I would like, but was an accurate guy in the short intermediate game. Now, this was the NFL. I would not say that would work long term. College football, you can get away with it, especially when you have guys like Eugene Wilson and Elijah Badger to get the ball to. Those two guys are great at making plays with the ball in their hands. They're great after the catch, which is a crucial part of Florida's offense, is guys who can use their body after the catch. Can either plow through someone to get extra yards, or can make a couple cuts and burst down the sideline. And I think a lot of this is going to depend on who just can get the right things going. Turnovers will be crucial, absolutely. Pass rush will be crucial, absolutely. I think Miami has a better pass rush. I think Florida's going to get more turnovers. So it's going to determine who gets more interceptions, who gets more sacks, or who can counteract the other one. If you're asking me to pick this game, I have it such a thin margin for error for either team that I could pick either or, and I'd be like, makes sense. I will pick the Gators for one reason and one reason only. It's in the swamp. If this game was in Miami, I'd pick Miami. but because it's in Florida, it's at the University of Florida. It'd be in Florida if it was at Miami. But because it's in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, I think the Gators win it. That is a hostile atmosphere, and it is going to affect some play calling majorly. And with the first time playing quarterback in a brand new system, and this is the first time a lot of these guys will ever use comms until they get to the NFL, and sometimes the comms won't work. Like, it can be so loud that you won't hear them. We've seen this in the NFL. Guess what? College football stadiums are louder than NFL stadiums. Okay. The next game I want to talk about is Notre Dame traveling to Kyle Field to play Texas A&M. Texas A&M hired a brand new head coach, Mike Elko, and I love this hire. I think Elko is going to come to A&M. He has a lot more talent to work with here than he did at Duke, and he had a very good team at Duke. He put their guys in the right position to win, and they did consistently. Do I think A&M is in the right spot right now? Not necessarily. But they have a lot of young talent. They have a lot of good defensive talent, mainly. I think this defense is going to be really effing good this year. Maybe top 10 in the nation. But when you go to the other side of the football, I don't have a lot of faith in their quarterback play. And that's not me saying Connor Wiggum is bad. No, I think quite the opposite. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he could be a good NFL player if he could stay healthy. I can't trust him to stay healthy. He has not shown that ability at A&M so far, and he's going to be playing in the SEC with a lot of big bodies beating him up. But he'll be healthy for week 1 against a Notre Dame team who has a very good defense, a very good secondary, which is very interesting because you look at Notre Dame, they are built in the trenches, which, hey, every SEC team is. But they're built a little bit differently. They're going very young on a team that has very high expectations. Because when we look at the offense side of the ball, they're going to be starting a true freshman at tackle, replacing their 2 NFL tackles that just got drafted. Does that cause for concern for me? A bit, yeah. He was just in high school 4 months ago. Playing against Texas A&M in Kyle Field, a little bit stiffer competition than he was in college. I mean, not college, high school. Whoops. But I really like Notre Dame's brand new quarterback in Riley Leonard, who ironically was Elko's quarterback last year. Had some injury issues, but when Leonard was healthy, he just looked really good. Really fascinating to see where he ends up in the draft process, because I assume he will be entering the draft after this season. Talented, can go a little bit higher than I think a lot of people would expect right now. And I look at these 2 teams specifically, and I'm just going to lean towards the quarterback play here. Because I think the margin for error is going to be very similar to the Miami-Florida game, except quarterback play is a lot more lopsided in this one. I'm going to take Notre Dame, pull off the, I guess, upset on the road, because a lot of people are picking A&M. But I think Notre Dame is just a really good team that's going to be in the college football playoffs. Will be one of the better seeds in my opinion, and I think this is one of the games that they know they have to get up for. I expect them to get up and just punch A&M in the mouth. Last game I want to preview before I get into a bunch of other stuff is West Virginia Penn State. In this game, I don't particularly expect to be close, because I'm just going to sum it up real quick, my thoughts in this game. I think Penn State's a much better football team, to be honest. I think they have a major advantage at almost every position on the field. I think they have an advantage in coaching. This is not me saying Neil Brown's a bad coach. No, I think he's done a very good job with West Virginia, especially saving his job last year, how they did. But I think West Virginia had a much easier schedule last year, and hey, they took it to Penn State in Happy Valley. So is an upset possible at home? Sure, it's week 1 college football. Crazy stuff can happen. But that being said, I don't see them doing anything because I don't trust their quarterback. Garrett Green, he has this moxiness that a lot of people love, and I like it to an extent. I think it's fun to watch, but do I rely on him in big moments? Nope, because their entire passing attack last year was very simple, and I'm going to give credit to Bud Elliott of the Cover 3 podcast, where I heard this from, and I went back and I watched it. I was like, he's exactly right. Garrett Green was either threes or dunks. It was either the deep ball or very short pass. No middle of the field, no middle passing game. And against a team like Penn State, I just don't see that working. Penn State has too many elite athletes. They have too many just guys who can kind of take over a game. They're very well coached. They have a brand new offense coordinator who I really like coming from Kansas to run the Kansas-based offense. And Drew Aller, I think, is getting slept on. I really expect a good year from Drew Aller, and I think this Penn State team is going to be a lot better than people expect. And I just don't see West Virginia being challenged for them, to be completely honest. Now, this is not me saying West Virginia is going to have a bad season. Quite the opposite. I think they're going to be a bold team. I think they're probably going to have a shot at the Big 12 title just because the Big 12 title, it's so hard to predict, which, hey, I'm going to be predicting that here in a little bit. But I just look at this team, I think they are good, but on a different class against Penn State. So I expect Penn State to kind of walk through them and just get to conference play. I don't expect much challenges until they play Ohio State for them. Now, let's move on to conference predictions. And before anyone says anything, I am sticking to what I had written down before week 0. And I'm saying that because we're starting the ACC, and I had Florida State winning the ACC title over, this might shock some people, NC State. I don't think Miami makes it. I don't trust Clemson. And the reason why I don't have Clemson making it is I have been very bullish on them. I thought they were going to win it the past couple seasons. Well, they did a couple seasons ago, but I thought they'd win it last season. And they kind of disappointed me when I watched that team. And my concern is Dabo not using the transfer portal, only relying on recruiting in today's day and age is a mistake. I think there's a happy medium to be found, and I don't think he has found that yet. Miami, I don't trust Mario Cristobal with this young team yet. Next year is a completely different story, but right now I still think they're building. I don't see them making it. NC State, they are going to win football games. I went with them because they feel like the most reliable team of I know what I'm getting. And they're going to play hard, they're going to play down the stretch, and it's just going to be a tough football game. Florida State, again, I picked this before week 0. My thought process was they're just the clear-and-cut best team of the ACC. They use the transfer portal well. They've started recruiting better. That was my thought process. Am I afraid of how I might look in a little bit if they lose a game or two? Absolutely. But I'm going to stick with what I had written down. I'm not going to change it with the new information I got. I very well could. But I feel like that'd be pointless for me in the long run. Now, the Big 12 title game. This was maybe the hardest because I could pick 5 teams to win it. Kansas State, Iowa State, Utah, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State. I can see any of those 5 teams making the Big 12 title game. So I kind of looked through this and I was like, well, who's got the best player in all those teams? Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon, phenomenal player. Then I went, well, who's got the best coach? Utah, Kyle Whittingham. Okay, well, maybe there's something there. Then I was like, who's got the best quarterback? Then I went Kansas State. In Avery Johnson, there's so much I'm banking on with Avery Johnson being this guy that if he's not, I'm going to be dead wrong here. But I am taking the Kansas State Wildcats to win the Big 12 Conference over the Utah Utes. I think they're both going to make the college football playoffs. I think they're both going to be hard teams to beat. And I look at those two teams. They are built very similarly. And Cam Rising, hey, he's good, but he's coming off a bad knee injury. I'm concerned of how he's going to play on it, if he's going to be a little bit skittish. And Avery Johnson, this is a guy that he has so many traits that you just love that you just want to put all your poker chips in on him right now and see if it pans out. And if it doesn't, you're going to regret it. But if it hits, man, is it going to feel good. So I'm taking K-State to win the Big 12 title. Then we go to the Big 10. The Big 10 was a little bit more difficult because I think this is, instead of 5 teams, this is 3 teams. And why would I say it's more difficult? Because these 3 teams are all really, really, really good. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. Those 3 teams, I think, are the best in the Big 10. And I had a hard time figuring out who I wanted to go here. I knew one team. One team was Ohio State. The second team, I debated in my head a bunch, but I ended up going Oregon for the sheer fact of I think their schedule is a little bit easier than Penn State. If their conference schedule was around the same, I'd probably go Penn State because I'm not a big Dylan Gabriel guy. But I look at these three teams, any three of those combinations playing would not shock me. But I have Ohio State winning the Big Ten title over Oregon. Then we go down to the SEC. The conference I love, it's where my Florida Gators play, and it's maybe the best conference in football for just a talent level. And as much as I would like to say, hey, this team can win, no. I'm going to be very boring here. I'm picking Georgia to win an SEC title, and I think they're going to beat Texas. I don't see Ole Miss being all that great, as a lot of people expect. I see Alabama maybe not having the same type of success under Kalen DeBoer year one that they did under Nick Saban, because there is an adjustment period still. I look at the SEC and I'm just like, Texas, they're established. They know what they like to do. Quinn Ewers is an established quarterback there. Georgia, Carson Beck, in my opinion, is the best quarterback in college football right now, draft eligible, to be specific. So I look at these factors. Carson Beck's my pick to win the Heisman. I'm going to give the edge to Georgia. Now, to get to the final segment, in this segment I've been looking the most forward to, my bets of the week. And I'm going to have some good bets here. I'm going to have a lock, and I'm going to have an upset pick. So, this is any random amount. These are numbers I liked and I saw. And I will tell you when these games are getting played as well, because I have 2 Thursday games, and then the rest are Saturday and 1 Sunday. To start out, under 50.5 from North Carolina, Minnesota. I don't think this game is going to maybe even be over 40 points, to be honest. This is such a good line that I just saw it and I jumped on it. I actually already put money on it. I don't think Minnesota has a good quarterback, and I don't think North Carolina has a good quarterback either. Then I look, well, can either of these teams run the football? North Carolina can run the football, but Minnesota was one of those teams that shut down their rushing attack last year. So I'm not going to predict this game of who's going to win, because I think it's impossible, because I don't think these teams are separated by much. So I will just instead take the under 50.5. The next line is another Thursday night game, and this will show you how low I am on a team. I have Kent State plus 24. Kent State is a very bad football team, but they're playing Pittsburgh, who I do not think is a good team either. Do I think Pittsburgh wins? Yes. Do I think they cover a 24-point spread at all this season? Nope. I don't like their quarterback room. I don't like their offense all that much. I think their defense is very good, but they still have to score more than 24 points with what Kent State scores. Kent State scores 2 touchdowns. Do I see Pitt scoring 38 points? I absolutely do not, and they'd have to score 39 points. So, I look at this. I lean heavily towards the Kent State odds here, plus 24. I think Pitt wins the game. UNLV plus 2.5 at Houston. I think UNLV wins this game, so I'm going to get the points as well. Just a little bit cushioned because this is a Power 4 team in Houston. But I don't think it's a good Power 4 team. I think Willie Fritz has his hands full rebuilding this team, and I think UNLV, they know what they like to do. It's a very fun, dynamic offense. I expect them to score a lot, and I don't expect Houston to stop them that much at all. The next bet I have is UCLA minus 13.5. Now, UCLA lost their head coach, Chip Kelly, who went to be an offense coordinator at Ohio State. But I don't really think that's too big of a negative because I don't feel like Kelly was doing with what they expected. Now, UCLA, they have some guys here, and one thing I was shocked when I went over these teams, and I'm going to highlight him more than anything because it just shocked me. Eric Bieniemy's the offense coordinator at UCLA. I did not know where he went, and then I was just doing a little research before this pod. I was like, I like the UCLA 13.5. Oh, Eric Bieniemy, a guy who can call a good game, is the OC. I like that, especially against a Hawaii team that didn't impress me at all against Delaware State, a very bad FCS team. The next one, This was hard, but I went plus 30.5 with New Mexico against Arizona. Arizona has a brand new coaching staff putting in place. They have a bunch of stuff going in there. New Mexico played last week. Bronco Mendenhall is a hell of a coach. I don't see New Mexico winning this game, but I don't see them losing by more than 30 points. My money line upset of the week is Wyoming at Arizona State. Wyoming is a very good team. They know how to play football. They will drag Arizona State into a dogfight, which I think Arizona State's quite comfortable doing, to be completely honest. But I just think Wyoming is just a bit better than them in other areas. So I will take Wyoming at Arizona State as my money line play of the week. And my lock of the week, I would have locked this up until it was maybe 75.5. LSU USC at over 64.5. Neither one I trust to stop an offense. I don't think their defenses can, and I look at these two offenses, I don't think there's a chance they don't score maybe on almost every possession. Nussmeier coming in, being the new quarterback, replacing Daniels. We'll see how that goes. In Miller Moss, I believe his name is the quarterback for USC, replacing Caleb Williams. These two offenses will score points. These defenses will not stop these offenses. I don't know who will win, but I very much do know it's going to be a fun game to watch, and it's going to be a game with a lot of points. But that's going to wrap us up for this college football preview show. This is week 1, week 0. There wasn't a whole bunch to recap. I would have liked to talk a little bit longer, but I look at next week. We're going to have Florida, Miami to recap, A&M, and Notre Dame to recap. Probably LSU, USC. Maybe some upsets happen they just got to talk about. So thank you everyone for listening. If you're new, I'd appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. And hey, if you want to check out some NFL divisional previews, that playlist will be right here. And the most recent upload on this channel will be right here. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.